Hello, all you fine, beautiful people. I'm back here once again with another video in my Five is Alive series. And today I'm going to be looking at Frogstomp by Silverchair. Released March 27th, 1995. Its genres include grunge and alternative metal. It is produced by the great Kevin Shirley, who has produced many acts, including Journey, most notably known for Dream Theater. He's produced Iron Maiden, Led Zeppelin's How the West Was Won was done by him. Tons of Beth Hart and Joe Bonamassa albums. The track listing for this album is Israel's Son, Tomorrow, Fault Line, Pure Massacre, Shade, Leave Me Out, Suicidal Dream, Madman, Undecided, Cicada, and Find a Way. The personnel for this album is Daniel Johns on guitar and vocals, Chris Janau on bass and vocals, and Ben Gillies on drums. The interesting part about this album that I found while researching this was that the members of this band were 15 when this was recorded. And I find that absolutely something you don't hear much is like a band at the age of 15, and this is like their breakthrough album, like it's their debut. And I have to say the quality of this album is really good. Definitely Israel's Son starts off the album. You have what feels like to me, you can tell their influences by listening to the album. Like you get very much a Pearl Jam feel listening to it with the vocal style, the bass and guitar sound. That's one thing I want to say about a lot of this album is you'll get like these heavy, hard songs, but then you'll get kind of like these slow melodic ballad parts, like great guitar work, great changes between like sort of this dirty, like in your face tone, but also very clean at times. Tomorrow, I believe I've heard this song before. Right around the time I was getting into music, this album was right breaking out. I'm sure I've heard Tomorrow somewhere. Great song from the album. The thing about this album, and I'll talk more about this album as a sonic listen, because you hear a lot of stuff. Like I said, you hear like the Pearl Jam influence. You hear what sounds like Metallica. You even hear stuff like what would later become kind of like that pop punk. But almost in a way, I'm hearing like listening to some of the drumming. You can definitely tell they were an influence for the song Kryptonite, because I remember hearing one of the drum parts of this, and it's almost exactly like that. It has a very similar feel to it. So there's that. This is an album, though, that, like I said, sonically, it sounds so good. Like at times it's slow, it's dirty, it's in there. You have like these great sounding guitars. You have bass that sounds amazing on this album. The drums sound good. It's a three-piece. It's so tight. And for these guys to be able to do this when they were 15 is insane. Because there is a lot of bands I've heard that don't sound this good. And I know the band, at least from what I read researching this, kind of had their own feelings that they felt like the songwriting wasn't up, it isn't like great lyrics, but I think it gets the point across. And that's something I really like about this album a lot, is the more and more I just immersed myself in this album, the more it just blew me away sonically. Because that's one thing I'll give Kevin Shirley a lot of credit. It's mixed great. It sounds great. I think they said they recorded this in like 9 days, which I can see because it does have like that. Especially this whole album has that recorded together feel to it. But I think the mixing, the producing of it gives it also that feel, even though they're together, it feels like everything's like cranked up to 11 with this band. It has a nice full sound. But it also has that kind of rebellious spirit to it. And I was kind of thinking to myself, like, these grunge albums around this time, like I said, you hear like the Pearl Jam, you hear the Metallicas, you hear the Alice in Chains, you hear bits and pieces of maybe Nirvana, Soundgarden. You can even like Stone Temple Pilots. There has that, like, you can tell what they were influenced by a lot. Is like that grunge alternative metal kind of thing going on. But there is some killer tracks on here. Like Israel Sun's really good. Like a really strong opener. Tomorrow, more the ballady song on the album, a fault line. Pure Massacre is good. Shade, Leave Me Out, Suicidal Dreams. I find from Suicidal Dream on Mad Men, Undecided, Cicada, and Find a Way. I just love that section of that album a lot. Like there's some interesting things going on here, and the more and more and more I just immerse myself in this album, the more I find absolutely loving it. Uh, I've done this, and some might ask, well, how have you never heard this before? Very easily. Like to me, 90s is kind of a weird. I always call the 90s a musical quagmire decade because it's a decade that never really appealed to me. I lived through probably the later half of the decade musically, and it kind of had that like feeling where what is it? And I've kind of always felt that way about pretty much that 93 on is what is it musically? Because it felt like every week the music style was changing from here to here to here to here, what's popular. But there's also something about that is that it's also a very musically rich decade. And I think that's something that doesn't, I think, get enough credit is how musically rich and how good there was a ton of great bands out there that just waiting to be discovered. So here I'm going to pull up the let's see. Pull up. Yeah, there it is. There's the album cover. They said Frogstomp came because he was looking through the producer's record collection through like 60s pop act, and he turned one of the CDs over and seen the title Frogstomp and said, "You know what? That would make a killer album title name." And he called up the guys, and they said, "Yeah, that's kind of funny. We like that." So that's the album cover to it. Also going to read off here some. Here's kind of make that. Read off just a couple reviews of this album because I think it's really interesting to see what was the reception to this. So I'll just yeah, pull that up there. Just make this just a little bit bigger so you guys can maybe read this. Oh, let's see. There it is, reception. Stephen Thomas Irwin of AllMusic wrote, for their age, 15 years old, their instrument capabilities are quite impressive as the guitars and vocal growl with the force of rockers in their early 20s. At the same time, their songwriting abilities aren't as strong, and they are never able to break away from the standard grunge formula. Nevertheless, the record does deliver a collection of songs replicating the thunder of tomorrow. Yeah, I'll agree with that. Definitely, I think even the band has admitted that the songwriting isn't quite there, but it's not a terrible thing. Like the great thing about this is like you're looking for a band to sing about teenage angst, why not have teenagers do it? Uh, Chuck Eddy of Entertainment Weekly wrote in July '95, the songs on Frogstomp are almost all start out like dreary Metallica ballads and build towards gloomy by the numbers grunge. David Fickey of Rolling Stone, on the other hand, wrote truly shameless wannabes like Bush should be so lucky to have the hard smarts that Silverchair, particularly the band's main writer, singer, guitarist Daniel Johns, and drummer Ben Gillies, show on Frog Stompers as pure massacre and Israel's son. When these guys turn 18, they'll be really dangerous. In 1995, ABC Australia wrote that Silverchair provided a thrilling synthesis of rage, confusion, and pain, and the distillation of teen angst. You couldn't get a pure generational timestamp than Frog Stomp. I'll kind of agree with that. Like, definitely, yeah. Yeah. And those are kind of the ones from later on, but Frog Stomp definitely is a decent, like it's a good album. Where would I rank this album? I'm not sure if I would rank the. So the albums I listened so far, like the one that I've listened, I love the most is "In the World in a Day" by Prince. Number two was "Tomorrow Belongs to Me" by Alex Harvey Band. I'm gonna put this one number three right now. Now it's the third album I've listened to, but there's a reason. I'm not saying that this album isn't good. It's a great, great record. I just think those albums have something though that I like a little bit more than this, and whether it be musically more adventurous, because I do agree with the thing where there is a little bit of paint by numbers grunge in that at the time, but I think it's also a very interesting listen, if that makes sense. Like it's still a good listen. Like I'm not saying it's a bad record or anything. I just think out of the three albums I've listened to, this one would probably be number three. And I don't think it's a fault on the band themselves. It's just those other albums I think are really, really strong. The interesting part for me will be where does this end up? Because I don't think I think you could say that this would be probably a topper half of the list album. At least that's my hope because I really do like this. But I'm really interested to see where other stuff lands on here to see exactly where it finishes. But definitely, one thing I'm gonna do, I think maybe after I get a bunch of these album reviews done, I'm going to definitely put a list together and I'm going to start putting it at the ends of videos where each one kind of matches because I thought about doing it for like the first couple, but then it's like it's very easy to see. Like you can tell where I'm going to put it in my ranking. I think once I hit about 10 albums, I'll start doing that and seeing where it starts kind of separating because I'm really excited to see at the end of the year where each album fits for me because this is something that I never thought I would actually do something like this, but I'm really excited to give it a shot. Uh, but yeah, this is definitely a good like if you like just straightforward rock and roll, like kind of that grunge period, 90s, like loud amps, everything's turned to like 12. This is definitely, I think, the album to you. It's a good hard rock, grunge, alternative metal, but there's also some really good instrumentation on here, and I really want you guys to check this album out. For those of you who have heard it before, great. If you haven't, just give it a listen. You might find something here you actually really like, because that's one thing I've noticed doing these episodes is it kind of pushes me out of my comfort zone because I don't think I would have ever listened to this if not for this. And that's the one thing I want to stress is to actually get outside your comfort zone and explore. Because the great land of music, there's so much music, you more than a lifetime's worth. Just go out explore. and have fun doing it. And if you find something you really like, great. If you don't like it, there's no harm in listening to it. So, anyway, that's my thoughts and opinions. The album I have coming up next in this series is going to be Love Supreme by John Coltrane. Uh, Definitely excited to listen to that again and delve deeper into that album because I remember the first time I heard it, it's kind of I was going through tons of jazz all at once, and it kind of I think got lost on me. But now that I've kind of sit back, listen to it, really, really immerse myself in it. We'll see whether I think it's an album better than this, but we're still hoping. But once again, thank you guys so much for watching. It really does mean a lot. And as usual, this is Mir signing out. Peace.